Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to continue our look at Magnus Robot Fighter. We're up to Volume 2 in the Dark Horse hardcover reprint series. There was 3 of them total. Once again, this reprints 7 more issues, number 8 through 14. And same nice production values. Just a nice book all around. I'm going to get this dust jacket off, make it easier to read. And I think I mentioned this embossed robot here. And I got to say, when I've been reading these books, I can't help but like fondle this with my thumb. There's something very tactilely satisfying about this. It's a really nice embossed thing. God, I guess think I'm a pervert. As if you didn't already. So we got the title page. We'll see this cover in a second. Table of contents. And this time we have a foreword by Steve Rude, which is very apropos because in, I believe, 1984, I think it was the Eisner Awards, they instituted a Russ Manning New Talent Award. And Steve Rude was like the first guy to win it. I'm pretty sure Steve Rude won the very first Russ Manning, new promising talent, whatever it was called. So, and also Steve Rude obviously so influenced by Russ Manning. I didn't realize this, but Nexus and Sundra, the 2 main characters in the Nexus comic, the male and female, were kind of physically based on Magnus and Lygia. And, the very classical good looks that they all 4 of them share. Also, Steve Rude did a Nexus Magnus crossover. It's quite beautiful, actually. I should look at that sometime soon. So now we're up to number 8. Once again, a painted cover by George Wilson. Man, this looks a little weird here. Not bad, just his face looks a little different. So this is Havoc at Weather Control. So I guess every year, Northam has this weather festival because Northam, for 1,000 years, 1,100 years, has had weather control. So basically every day in Northam is a perfectly sunny day, 72 degrees, whatever. There's no inclement weather ever. And so at this weather festival, we see Lygia being crowned queen. And Magnus is clapping for her. I love this how Lygia seems to be wearing an Angora nightgown. Not nightgown, just a full gown. Just a beautiful dress, but it's all Angora. I'm just saying that because it looks very fuzzy. And actually, I love the idea. Once again, I'm sounding like a pervert. But that seems like really hot. A full dress of Angora. And so, I guess the big event for this weather festival is that one day a year, everyone gets to experience crazy weather that they're not used to, that they never experience. So the weather control tower beams down all these different weather conditions. First, snow, which is quite a novelty for them. They never get snow. So everyone's having a good time, having snowball fights. Magnus and Lygia put on some skis that are rocket powered. Then the tower whips up a warm whirlwind, and everyone puts on these wings, and they float on the updrafts. And I gotta say, I love this panel. It's so beautiful. All these different colored wings, and just the graceful arc of each wing that Russ Manning draws, all these different ones. Great panel, just beautiful sci-fi fantasy art. Then, this is ridiculous. And then there's Tickle Rain, which I don't know how you make that happen. Somehow this rain tickles you, and of course everyone's giggling and loving it. And and then it gets dark, and the air seems to thicken and to darken. And then there's a smell of ozone and a tingle of static electricity. And I guess it's Martian electro dust, whatever the hell that is. and everyone's zapping each other with static electricity. But I love this guy here. He looks like he's whacked out on drugs. Look at him. He's all tinted green. He's totally high on the Martian electro dust. But then something unexpected happens. The weather station whips up a tornado, which wasn't part of the program. And this is serious business. This is a fucking huge tornado. And as we see in this great panel here, just like a great disaster movie, this tornado is tearing through Northam. So, and then all of a sudden they see this kid run out of nowhere. And he's like, weather control is being destroyed, help. And these two robots grab him. And, Magnus can hear their robotic communication. And the weather control is telling them, do not allow boy to speak. Destroy him if necessary. So these are obviously bad robots. Of course, Magnus is having none of that. Runs over there and starts tearing into these bad robots. Some really great action. I mentioned last time that sometimes I find this art a little too antiseptic and clean. But some of these action panels of Magnus leaping into action, just his body is so beautifully composed. It's almost like a Bern Hogarth thing, going on, where it just makes the human form look so graceful and beautiful. I mean, it's just like really, Russ Manning's really good at that. Some of these action panels are just quite stunning. So of course, Magnus beats the shit out of these robots, and before the boy complete his warning, the weather station whips up a hurricane. Magnus grabs Legia and the boy, pins him to the ground so they won't be blown away, and then it whips up a blizzard and tries to freeze them out. So finally the kid gets to speak. He says, robots trying to destroy weather control, and I think I caused it. So we find out that this kid is in a group called the Outsiders. This is like a new characters in Magnus. They're 4 kids, like teenagers, who I guess kind of look up to Magnus. Magnus's whole message of self-reliance and not relying too much on robots, they have taken up. So they're basically like Eagle Scouts. They like to do things without robots, do things for themselves, learn, like an Eagle Scout, learn how to start a fire or whatever, hunt. So they were on an expedition to the base of this canyon, and a robot stopped them. This isn't an evil robot. He's doing his job. He's a police robot who says, I can't allow you guys to come to injury, and so you got to turn around. This is a dangerous path. Nobody's allowed down here. And one of the outsiders here, he mentioned something about how there's an old battlefield, like a historic battlefield at the bottom of this canyon where 1,100 years ago, those who opposed weather control made their last resistance. So they can't get by the robot. He's just like, stop arguing with me. Get out of here. So the kids are pissed off, of course. God, I just realized that totally looks like Steve Rude there. Speak of the devil. So they look down the cliff and they're like, hey, it's a little more dangerous, but let's just climb down the cliff. We don't need that stupid trail and where the robot's going to stop us. So one of them slips and starts to fall. But none of them got hurt. So they make it to the base, and all of a sudden this robot comes out of the ground. And it turns out this robot was part of that resistance to weather control. So it's programmed to take down weather control. And it obviously isn't really like one of those nice robots. It's not obeying his human masters. So these kids are like, we're going to be like Magnus. We're going to stop that robot. And so they climb up a cliff and throw rock boulders down on it to no avail. This robot's way too tough. In fact, it fires rocket darts back at him. So this robot doesn't follow the Asimov laws of robotics. He'll harm humans if he feels like it. So I guess they all followed the robots. This bad robot to weather control. And all of them got captured except for that kid who's talking to Magnus. His name's Howie. So Magnus and Legia and him and this robot, a good robot, put on their skis and make it to a shelter. Apparently the weather control is wreaking havoc throughout Northam. So Magnus takes the kid with him for this rescue mission. And they're basically going to assault this weather tower. And of course, lots of kick-ass action ensues. This is Magnus tearing through all these robots. The weather station unleashes acid rain on him. It is interesting, Magnus, how, he's super strong, great fighter, but a lot of times he shows off his smarts. That's how he gets out of things. So he says, take your powered skis and stick them in this alkali, these salt deposits. This will neutralize the acid. And a lot of times in the issues, because I guess 1A didn't just train him to be the ultimate robot fighter. He also trained him in like almost all human knowledge. So they break into this place. They find the rest of the outsiders. It is kind of interesting that in 1964, they have this multiracial group. But it is really annoying how the Asian kid is colored the most ludicrous yellow. I mean, it's just like no human, unless they have jaundice, is that yellow. But that was a common practice all the way up to the 70s, that Asian characters were given this ludicrous skin coloring, which doesn't make sense because I'm sure people saw Asian people. Maybe not a lot of them, but they saw them. And you'd think one of them would say, hey, their skin color doesn't look like that at all. Why do we keep doing this? But as I told the story before, it basically took Larry Hama, when he worked in comics way earlier, that he finally went up to some of the editors and said, Larry Hama's Japanese. He said, does my skin look like this? Why do you guys keep doing this? And they were like, hey, you're right. Why do we? And that kind of changed everything. So back to the story. So just a lot of havoc. And they're breaking into this weather station. Somehow these kids got some like laser guns. I kind of missed that where they picked those up. Speaking of great panels, look at this. I love this panel. Just the pose of Magnus there. And the kids are down here zapping robots. So Magnus is making his way to like the central control while the kids are holding off the robots. And this is that robot we saw from the beginning, the 1100-year-old robot. And Magnus has to take him on. He's got it's not easy because he doesn't have a neck. That's like the soft spot in most robots. That's how Magnus takes him out. So all he can do is just rip his head off. He almost rips his fingers off in the process. And so Magnus fixes everything. And one of the outsiders is injured, but he's okay. He's going to be okay. He's going to pull through. So this isn't the last time we see the outsiders. And really nice last panel here of just happily ever after. Magnus and Legia are looking at the now serene city with its cloudless skies. I forgot to mention, guys, that first, it goes without saying, all the art in this is by Russ Manning. But sometimes he writes, sometimes he doesn't. Number 8, the one we just looked at, that was written totally by Russ Manning. This issue is written by Robert Schaefer and Eric Freiwald again, who wrote many of the first 7. Once again, we have another George Wilson cover. Something about these George Wilson covers, obviously, he's very facile with a paintbrush. But those kind of like weird little positions guys are in. I don't know, that just kind of looks funny to me, the way he's nudging into this thing and the look on his face. So this one's called Robot Ghost. This totally had me guessing. It's like, how could a robot be a ghost? What the hell's going on here? So one day, this government car is driving. These ghosts pop up in the middle of the road. They've got this like glowing force field around them. The whatever jet car crashes into it, completely destroying it. And then these robots with the green glow, they just start attacking all these other robots, and they go into this spaceport, and they ruin all the machinery in this communications dome. And right then, the director of astral research from the spaceport, he happens to be landing. And they're like, all right, next victim is approaching. And his guard robots can do nothing against this force field. And so it's kind of interesting. And, Marvel and DC, it was pretty rare that people died. And I think it was even more rare in Dell Comics. They were more geared for kids. But his robots totally shoved the guy off this, out of a 50-story building and kill him. And so now we see Senator Klain and Magnus, and they're getting the news about these ghost robots. So one of the robots jumps in, a comrade, and he says, "We just received an audio message from Professor Bertram Wade." And the president says, "Impossible, he died a month ago." And it's Bertram Wade speaking. And he says, "Before long, you will all die, including Magnus." So everyone just thinks it's some weird joke. How could he be talking if he's dead? So Magnus calls up the police robots, says, "We need extra security here at the government palace," or whatever it's called. And a little interlude of Magnus chilling with Legia and Senator Klain. And the ghost robots show up again. The leader's called Nadmot. And once again, they're unstoppable. Magnus is just totally rebuffed by the shield. He can't even make a dent in it. Once again, great pose there. You really feel like the force of him being rebuffed by that. So it turns out this guy was a head scientist, like on the science council or something. And I guess his health was doing bad. And he basically was ordered to retire. And his whole thing was he wanted more robots. He's almost like the opposite of Magnus. He's like, robots should do even more for us. And the Council of Elders, or whatever the hell they're called, they disagreed. But on top of that, the guy did seem to be, losing his mind. So he swears revenge, which to them just proves that he's kind of mad. And so what he did was, he's a super smarty pants. He built all these great robots, these really tough robots. And I guess it wasn't just his mental health, it was his physical health was bad. So he knew he was going to die. So on his deathbed, he transferred his consciousness into Nadmot. So Nadmot is basically this professor. And now he's going to get his revenge on all of those who kicked him out of the council. He even toys with them. Magnus says, "Why don't you just kill us now?" He says, "I'll pick the time when I kill you. I'll let you live in fear for a while." So Magnus basically says, "You guys, you Council of Elders, you all got to go into a bunker. Legia, you too. I'll take these guys on. It's the only hope." So Magnus realizes that there's nothing you can do to harm these robots as long as they got that force field. So he does this elaborate trick where he lures them to this spaceport, and using all these shenanigans, he tricks the ghost robots into running into this chamber, which is actually a deep space probe. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Of course, it goes on for quite a while. It's actually really suspenseful. This is like it would be a great sci-fi movie, this scene. Like something from Aliens or something. It's It's really well told. One thing I don't understand is Magnus wears this mini skirt, and no matter what he's doing, it never rides up. You never get even a peek of Magnus's butt cheek or his ball sack. I don't know how he does it. I don't know how this magic miniskirt never reveals anything. He could be like upside down, just whatever he does, it magically clings to his buttocks. So here we go. After all this shenanigans, oh God, look at this panel, guys. It's like kind of wood with a little bit of Kirby thrown in there. Very interesting. You rarely see this kind of a, I don't know if that's chiaroscuro, that kind of shading in Magnus. I kind of wish it was always drawn like that. So Magnus's plan works. He locks him in to this deep space probe, and basically they just shoot him out into space. And just another beautiful sci-fi panel, happy ending, here. Okay, let me get my list back up. So now we're up to number 10, The Mysterious Octo-Rob. Another George Wilson painted cover. And this time, Russ Manning writes it with help from Don Christensen. So one day this weird vortex appears in the air and starts sucking things up, like giant towers, and of course everyone's freaking out. But the worst part is when it fades out, everything that it lifted up just falls on the city, causing huge amounts of damage. And so these vortexes keep popping up. It seems unstoppable. These police ships go to attack it, and it jams their controls, and they basically blow up in midair. And then when it disappears, they all fall to the ground, crushing people. So Magnus, well, I don't know if it's Magnus's order, but everyone goes to the sub-levels. And we see these tractor beam tubes to the lower levels, and they're jammed. It's a pretty great panel there. I like how he just draws all these people in here. And then all of a sudden, these mysterious two people show up. And it's this woman, Lakrina, and her friend Strengy. And I guess they claim that they're from another planet. She has ESP. And she says, I feel echoes from that green cloud, the vortex. A refrain comes to me. The earth shall see great Xerxes yield, rogue knight of Limbo's triumph sealed. And, of course, Magnus, it takes him 1 second to figure it out. He says, take the first letters. It spells Zirkle. So Zirkle's back, the guy with the walrus face. And she, basically this woman says, I don't know where these messages come from. So, but Magnus is like, it's Zirkle's behind this thing. Once again, we got to stop Zirkle. So this mysterious pair are just wandering around. Magnus doesn't detain them and question them or whatever. He's just like, they're kind of weird. And now we see Zirkle pop up on the telescreens, and he challenges Magnus once again. Of course, he's behind these magnetic storms. And, I'm sorry, his mustache coming out of his nose always cracks me up. It's ridiculous. So the attacks continue. And that's why it's called the Octo-Rob, because sometimes you can see its tendrils. I guess it's a giant robot, technically. Didn't quite get the physics of that. And it increases its attacks. It's just going crazy. Finally, Magnus realizes that Strengy isn't all he seems. And Magnus attacks him. They both go falling off this rooftop. Magnus grabs this rail and kind of, pole vaults into this lower window. But as far as Legith knows, believes, she thinks he's dead. She's like, oh my God, he fell to his death. But Magnus shows up, tell her that I'm okay, but don't tell anyone I'm alive. I want Zirkle and the robots to think I'm dead. Oh, I didn't mention it, guys. That woman, you probably figured it out. She's a robot, too. She's been beaming transmissions to Zirkle. Of course, Magnus, with his special power, he heard these transmissions and is like, oh, she's a robot. I hate to be negative, but that's not a good panel there. I don't know what's up with Magnus's face. This looks weird there. I guess she can't always look like a movie star. I keep talking about how beautiful Legia is drawn, but yeah, Magnus is pretty fucking handsome. I mean, if he was a real dude, he'd be a movie star. So, Magnus figures out that Zirkle's got a base in Antarctica. Of course, he's got to fight a lot of robots. This is some great fight choreography here. Fun stuff. I like how Magnus is hoisted up by this hook. He's incapacitated. Zirkle's got some master plan. He's going to destroy all of North Am. Nothing new there. This is an interesting panel here. Kind of cartoony-ish. But I like it. It looks great. But it almost looks like a different artist, a more cartoony artist. So Magnus frees himself and wrestles with Zirkle. I like how he just smashes this robot by taking Zirkle and just using him as a weapon. Grabs him by the wrists and just whomps the robot with him. And once again, he defeats Zirkle, who'll probably be back in 2 issues. And once again, it's a happy ending. Oh, wait. That's not the end of the issue. I'm sorry, guys. There's more. Because Strangy's still around. And, God, that could be Penny Century, huh? Right there. She had blonde hair. So, now Legia joins in the fight. She's fighting that woman robot. And Magnus is taking care of Strangy. Once again, something's wrong with his head there. I think he was the foreshortening. Something's gone wrong. And Strangy's pretty fucking tough. But, of course, Magnus defeats him. As he always does. Okay, number 11. Beasts of Steel. Another cover by George Wilson. And this issue is written by Russ Manning. Once again, doesn't look like the character inside. He looks more rugged. He's not as much of a pretty boy as Russ Manning draws Magnus. This one's kind of interesting. This introduces some more characters, which I think reappear. So we see these wolves, and they're attacking all these food distribution centers. They're not eating anything. They're just ruining it somehow. I figure if they're not eating it, can't you just rebundle it up and still eat it? Yeah, there'll be some bite marks in it or something. But it's actually a crisis. They're like, we're running out of food. These wolves have attacked so many distribution centers. And we find out who's behind it. And it's this guy. He's commanding the wolves. Magnus shows up. The wolves run away. I think this guy's name is Mech-Man. And he realizes that Magnus will kick their ass, so he just tells the wolves to leave. So, of course, Magnus is going to get to the bottom of this. Mech-Man realizes there's one person who might be able to trace his wolves. And so he goes to this auditorium, and it's Danae and her Neo animals. Once again, this almost looks like another artist. Like some Neil Adams going on here with all the ink lines. It's not as clean. And once again, Russ Manning just draws gorgeous women. This is Danae, and she's an animal trainer. But in this future, animals have evolved, and they're very intelligent. They can talk. We have these two monkeys called Bimmy and Bama. Very silly names. And one of them's playing piano. One of them's talking. Then they have Condi, a giant snake, a boa constrictor, who does complicated math problems suggested by the audience. So I guess just through selective breeding, all these animals can do amazing stuff. Once again, this looks like a Spanish artist. Like, I don't know, could be Esteban Morado or something. Just draws women so beautifully. Slin the raccoon. He's like ESP. He can tell what people are thinking. So Mech-Man's in the audience. He's like, oh, this is exactly what I was afraid of. You know, I got to take this woman and her neo-animals out. They could screw up my plans. So the wolves barge into the auditorium. And I love this fight between robot wolves. I didn't mention that. They're robots, sorry. And the neo-animals. I wish this was a mini-series of just neo-animals fighting robot wolves. Magnus is there already. He was enjoying the show. So him and the neo-animals square off. Once again, Mech-Man orders his wolves to retreat. Realizing that, they're a little overpowered. So now, once again, we're visiting the lower levels. This is Kansas City. So North Am just built up over America. And they're wandering around trying to find Mech-Man because I guess they traced his signal there or something. And he also has robot gorillas. So once again, we have a Donnybrook between the neo-animals and these robot animals. That's a fun panel. She also has an eagle, the Neo Eagle. So one of the robot gorillas grabbed Danae, and so she's being held hostage. So of course Magnus isn't going to have that. No, none of that. So I guess this is when they finally realize that it's Mech-Man. And I guess Mech-Man was last time they captured Mech-Man, they put him in a psychoprobe, conditioning him against ever doing anything antisocial ever again. So Senator Klein doesn't think it could be him. They go to visit Mech-Man, and he seems innocent. And once again, drawn differently than anyone else in the comic. It's weird how Mech-Man gets all this line work. And he says, yeah, it's psychologically impossible for me to do anything that would, harmful to anyone. But you can give me a test. I consent. And so the test comes up positive, or negative, I should say. But this is how genius Mech-Man is. He basically put himself under hypnotic suggestion, where he actually, this is who he is when he's under his hypnotic suggestion, but then he has this ball, a steel ball. And whenever he sees it, he snaps out of it and becomes the evil Mech-Man again. So it's almost like the perfect cover. And we see him turn evil. Kind of an interesting idea. So now they're following these robot mice, hoping that they'll lead them to Mech-Man's lair. These panels are kind of interesting. Look at this one with the shadows. Almost seems like Alex Toth jumped in for a panel. And they find Mech-Man's lair. He's making all these robots. Magnus frees Danae. The robot animals attack. But then the Neo animals jump in once again. Including Bimmy and Pama. Look at this panel. This is a fun one. That's a regular brouhaha. So the good guys get up on this thing and they unleash this water into the room. drowning the robots, or not drowning them, of course, they're robots, but they can't get out, completely submerges them. But then they can't turn them off, so now they're going to drown. Mech-Man tries to escape. Magnus punches him, ties him to Condi. That's a big boa constrictor. It's like a dragon. And then they have to swim underwater through this tunnel. Kind of like a Poseidon Adventure style. And they escape. And then it appears that all the shock of this turned Mech-Man back into his nice self. He's like, oh, how did I get here? Last thing I remember, I was in my apartment. And once again, a happy ending. And hopefully we'll get to see the Neo animals again. I'd like to see them fight the Legion of Super Pets. This is a really nice cover. I like this one. So we're up to number 12, The Volcano Makers. This is another George Wilson cover. This one also, once again, written by Russ Manning and Don Christensen. Now, here's something interesting. Art assist by Mike Royer. So I believe Mike Royer helps for the rest of the series. So we're in the Texas sector of North Am. I guess there's still rodeos. The horses are like 9 feet tall, robot riders. But then we see this robot somewhere lurking about, and he plants this disintegrator probe. It's activated, and all of a sudden, a volcano erupts. Doesn't mention how many millions would have died. So the public's furious. They're just like, how come the government can't protect us? What the hell's going on here? Once again, we see an Asian character with that ridiculous skin color. So another volcano erupts. Some bad outbreak of acne. And so Magnus sees that shady robot from earlier. And all of a sudden, though, a force ray crushes him down while he's fighting the robot. And then a tractor beam type thing lifts him up into the ship. Legia dives after him. So it turns out the ship is owned by Dr. Arbin. This is very similar to the one just 2 issues ago. He's another kind of crazed scientist. So he tries to throw Magnus out of the ship, and Magnus grabs one of the robot legs and pulls him down, seemingly to his death. Legia totally thinks he's dead. She's like, oh no, Magnus is gone. But using the robot, I kind of like this. He hooks this, what is it, an industrial cable that just happens to be there. And he uses the momentum at just the right moment. He does a cannonball into this body of water and saves himself. So now Legia's a hostage, and Magnus, of course, is going to rescue her. So it turns out this Dr. Arbin, that's kind of an interesting thing here, where they realize he has mental health issues. Even more crazy than that other guy. This guy's just mad. And it shows a kind of like a progressive understanding of people with mental health issues. They're not like, yeah, Magnus, go kill this guy. They're like, no, this guy's sick. And so they try to reach out to him and say, listen, Argon, please don't make others suffer for your illness. And they're trying to reason with him. They even say like, hey, your council chair is still empty. We didn't fill it. We want you to come back. We just thought you needed a break. You know, you're getting a little cuckoo there. And he does seem to be coming around. He's like, really? You kept my chair? I could come back? And so he's kind of snapped out of his, like, evil revelry. Just want to mention, that's another great Legia panel. But, unfortunately, when he says, okay, I'll stop my evil plans, his robots are programmed to to carry out his plans. So they don't accept it. They grab him and say, well, your motives have changed, but ours haven't. We're still going to go through with this evil plot you have to basically destroy all of North Am by building up pressure in the Earth's crust. So this, one of those robots, once again, he goes to this giant lake, puts one of the disintegrator probes on the base of the lake. The plan is that it'll make a hole, just like a sink. When you pull the stopper out, the whole lake will, fall into the Earth's center, causing all this steam and pressure. But it hits the magma, and that will just blow up everything, maybe blow up the whole world. So, of course, Magnus is going to stop this. This is another one that's really suspenseful. Like, as you're reading it, I was like, really just like, well, how's Magnus going to get out of this one? This isn't really important, but this is just like kind of beautiful abstract art here. The way the steam is coming out, the disintegrator probe is burrowing. So Magnus is almost drowning, and he makes it to the surface, but then this whirlpool sucks him down because the lake is already draining. He grabs the probe, once again swims to the surface against the total horrible pull. But then there's an air cruiser blocking his way. So he uses the disintegrator probe to breach the hull, pops up through it, and starts fighting the robots again while the water's pouring in. See what I told you? There's some great action. Magnus is using the disintegrator probe as like a weapon, like a laser blaster. So finally, they stop the robots, and they basically go visit Arbon, and he's being taken care of, and they're giving him psycho-stabilizing. But the thing is, it almost seems like, oh, it's a happy ending. But no, they're like, oh no, all this water is still gone into the Earth's crust. We've got to plug that hole. So Magnus comes up with this crazy plan, calls in all these like laser guns and all this government shit, and they lop off the top of a mountain and use it as a plug. But still, everyone's just like, yeah, but half the lake has sunk into the Earth's crust. And so everyone's just waiting. They're just like, we're doomed. The pressure's building. But then Magnus says, relax, guys. North Am is letting off steam safely. And he's at Yellowstone Park. I don't know how he got there that quick. And for the first time in 500 years, 1,000 years, Old Faithful starts blowing again. And this, once again, looks like a totally different artist. Look at the line work on this steam geyser. It looks like classic, 19th century illustration. There's all this line work. It really stands out, very different. Okay, now we're up to number 13, The Evil Arc of Dr. Noel. So we finally meet another villain. It's not Zirkle. I gotta say, this is one of the best George Wilson covers. This is like a great sci-fi paperback cover. I love Legia in the stars, her ghostly visage. Legia also gets a new haircut in this issue, and she looks even hotter. And so the story starts off, these two robots kidnap Legia. Nobody knows why. Don't know what the hell's going on. But it turns out there's been a rash of kidnappings lately. But all of them have been like scientists. And meanwhile, we cut away to the Council of Elders and the Governing Council. And there's this guy, Dr. Noel. And he's the opposite of... I'm sorry, he's not the opposite. He's almost like Magnus taken to an extreme. He thinks that there should be no robots. All robots should be destroyed. And now all of a sudden Magnus is like the voice of reason. He's like, oh, not all robots should be destroyed. Robots are used to mankind. But there should be fewer of them. So it's kind of weird. Because earlier, I think there was a panel in the first book where he says, it might be a good thing if all the robots destroyed each other, we're gone. But now he's changed his tune. But this guy's an extremist, Dr. Noel. And of course, the council thinks it's crazy. They disagree. A lot of the guys are like, there should be more robots, not less. And then news of Legia's kidnapping comes. I like this. He says, but the others who vanished were experts, scientists. Legia's only a girl. I don't understand. And so, of course, Magnus is going to rescue her. They find out through some, I don't know how they find this out. Actually, I'll jump the gun, guys. Let's get back to Dr. Noel and Legia. He has this ship that's like on the other side of the sun. Very close to the sun, so it's very hot in there. No matter how much heat shields you have. And we see all of the scientists, the guys who aren't just girls, kind of in hibernation sleep. This robot's kind of showing her around. See how cute she looks with this new haircut? I told you. I love this outfit, too. God, I'm such a perv. Lusting after lines on paper. So, I guess, I don't really, I think I missed something somewhere. But she says, oh, maybe I can contact Magnus telepathically in the way Marie has been training me. And I don't remember ever meeting a telepathic person named Marie. Please comment if my memory's that bad. Because I did the first video 2 days ago. I don't remember this telepath, Marie. So it kind of works. But it's kind of, she can't really say where she is. She just says it's really hot. And just from that, Magnus figures it out. Now, Dr. Noel introduces himself to Legia, tells her his whole crazy plan. He's going to start a new society on a new world. They're all going to go into hibernation for 100 years, land on this planet, an untouched planet. It's weird. Dr. Noel hates robots, but he's got plenty of them working for him. But his plan is once he gets to the planet, he's going to destroy the robots. And man can start off fresh without the pesky robot influences. So yeah, just from the fact that the ship is warm, Magnus figures, she's on the other side of the sun. So he goes up there with a robot friend, and the ship burns up. Magnus has got this little force field that lasts a few minutes, but I mean, he's right next to the sun. It's kind of crazy. And he breaks his way into the ship just in time, just as his force field was almost gone. There's an intruder alert. All these, and Magnus is fucked. He's just the exertion of flying in that ship with 3/4 light speed. I mean, most humans couldn't even survive that. And now the heat from the ship. So Magnus is at 1/4 power. See what I'm talking about, guys? That miniskirt never rides up. He's doing all this crazy stuff. You don't see any cheek. So the robots easily subdue Magnus. Dr. Noel, of course, has to rant his plan to Magnus. Once again, Magnus is the devil's advocate saying, robots are useful. So I guess the reason why he took Legia, even though she's just a girl, is because he wants her to be his bride. So he's just a dirty old man. Kind of having this debate. Magnus is too weak. But of course, he's Magnus. He's got a great will, so he just keeps trying to fight back, even though he can barely stand. There's kind of a Wally Wood-esque inking job there. So, once again, a really dynamic pose there as he's crushing these robots. So he's about to give Legia her sleeping potion that'll put her to sleep for 100 years for their journey. But Magnus just won't stay down. Also, apparently, Dr. Noel's kind of an idiot, and he's too close to the sun. Magnus even tells him. He says, you got to do the reverse thrusters. You're going to start sinking, falling into the sun. And he's like, shut up. You think I don't know how to run this ship? So Magnus fights his way to Dr. Knoll's central control. And then the exact same thing that Magnus said would happen, that the ship would be torn apart. Look at this great effect here, guys. This vibration effect through these lines. That looks really cool. And with the different coloring, it really, you could feel just like they're getting torn apart. But of course, at the last minute, Magnus gets the controls and slowly but surely they pull away from the gravitational force of the sun and head back to Earth. Another great panel. Once again, beautiful Lygia, and this time almost like Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, beautiful woman, because he drew some beautiful women in his day. Look at this crazy pink cover by George Wilson. Oh, I'm sorry. This one is a new artist, Vic Prezio. Now, this issue, number 14, is called The Monster Robs. And this is written by Herb Castle, a new edition. Once again, art assist by Mike Royer. And sorry guys, I didn't mention the last story we just looked at. That was also written by Herb Castle with an art assist by Mike Royer. So, this one's kind of a weird story. I don't know about this one. So once again, the outsiders are in this story. I guess this asteroid lands in this park. And the outsiders happen to show up. This kid from the outsiders, he picks up he found a piece of the meteorite. And he decides to keep it. He's going to take it home. Meanwhile, there's these Paul Robs guarding the landing site of the asteroid. And then when night falls, these bubbles start rising from the asteroid. I really like this panel. Something about it with these bubbles and these robots. Just a well-composed panel. Meanwhile, his name's Trum, this outsider. In Trum's room, his little piece of asteroid is emitting bubbles. They seem to want to escape. And they can't get through the window, so he opens the window. Because he doesn't want these bubbles in his room. The following morning, we see Magnus about to basically checking in with Lygia. He's got to do something. I guess there's some like Ripper Ray being developed that he's going to help test. I said it before, guys, but these laying down in your sleigh car is so silly looking. It's so dumb. I bet everyone would have back problems in this future world. They all have really bad neck injuries. So the next day, the Paul Robs left to guard the asteroid are humongous. They've grown to a tremendous size. Another great Lygia panel there. And they also, it seems like they don't have their Asimov thing on anymore. And they attack the people around the park. Of course, Magnus is not going to have that. But they're so big, he can't just karate chop the neck, so he yanks this one's head off with all of his strength. More of these robots are becoming unusually sized. Robots of unusual size. The whole city, the police force is fighting them. So Magnus gets that Ripper Ray he was talking about. And it seems like the only thing that can stop them from growing. And wreaking havoc. Excuse me, guys. So what's his face? God, I already forgot his stupid name. Trum. Trum tells the outsiders they don't really believe him until they turn off the lights. Apparently the bubbles only come out from the asteroid when there's lights off. No light. Once again, it goes to the window. Trum frees them. As the boys emerge from the building, the kid with jaundice yells and says, the doorman robot. It's grown to unusual size. Run. I gotta say, there's something about these reprints. I don't know if they couldn't get the originals. In fact, I'm pretty sure they couldn't for all of these. And they just had a little blurry. I mean, it's not terrible. But there's some really dodgy line work in some of these panels on certain pages where it doesn't look like the best reproduction. So I think maybe they just had photostats, not the ideal thing to copy. I don't know the story behind it, but you can definitely tell in some panels. It's like, yeah, it looks a little off. So now the outsiders are, trying to help out Magnus. They reach Magnus and they tell him what they discovered about the bubbles. So Magnus realizes, well, any metal if we encase it in metal, the bubbles will just make anything metal bigger. It'll just keep growing and growing until it basically is bigger than the Earth. Once again, Magnus uses the ripper ray against these giant robots, but the giant robots are appearing quicker than he can destroy them. So the outsiders help him out. They're tripping up robots with rope, doing everything they can to help take out these robots. Even Senator Kane's helping him. And then finally, Tom, God damn it, how do you say his stupid name? Term? I can't remember. He tells Magnus about how the bubbles couldn't get out his window. So Magnus realizes that they can't get through glass, quartz or glass. So they gotta make a little cage for it. And problem solved. And another happy ending. And basically, it kind of becomes a tourist attraction type thing. People come to see the bubble rock. This is just a weird story. These bubbles make metal grow. This seems pretty dumb. Pretty dopey. I blame Herb Castle. I'm trying to think now. Yeah, the Dr. Noel story was kind of goofy too. Maybe these Herb Castle stories aren't the best. You guys, this is such a treat, though. Magnus concept art supplied by Mike Royer from 1962. Kind of, I think, a full year before Magnus came out. Look at this stuff. So, I guess at one point, Magnus was going to have long pants, which somehow look more ridiculous than his miniskirt. The way he draws these long pants, almost like they're maybe like a undersea diving wetsuit or something. Really weird looking. But look at this Legia here. It can almost be like Eduardo Riso. It looks really interesting. Almost all of these look kind of interesting to me. But unmistakably Russ Manning. Except for that Legia. But it looks like he pretty much had it figured out. I mean, it's not like it. The mini skirt tunic thing is just, it still looks ridiculous to me. I like Magnus a lot, but it just looks silly. We got a Russ Manning biography once again. Some ads. And I think that's it, guys. So that's it for Magnus Robot Fighter Volume 2. And we're 2/3 of the way through. Next video, I'm going to polish this series off. The last 7 issues. I think there was more Magnus, but Russ Manning didn't do them. So who cares? So all of Russ Manning's Magnus Robot Fighter are in these 3 volumes. And I'm showing them off to you. All of them. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope to see you next time. And yeah, hope to see you here at the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.